Hello again everyone, I'm Dave Thomas and today I am building the Mongoose two-stage model rocket by Estes. This goes together really quickly, it's all pre-finished and everything. All you have to do is apply the decals. So essentially you can go from kit to ready to launch in however long it takes your glue to dry. So let's go ahead and open this up and make sure we have everything. Alright, so we'll get our instructions here and start pulling out pieces. So we've got the main body tube, pre-colored purple. We've got a small parts bag, and this contains the centering rings, the engine blocks, the motor mount tubes, launch lug, base of the nose cone, and the shock cord and the parachute. So all the little parts are basically in one bag here. Alright, we have our self-stick decal set. Here's the lower body tube for the booster stage, nose cone, and two fin assemblies. So it looks like we have all the parts we need. I'm going to clear most of this away and then we'll get started. Our first task is to assemble the motor mount for the booster stage, and for this you're going to need one of the two motor mount tubes. They're both the same size, so it doesn't matter which one. Alright, the kind of blue-gray thrust ring or engine block ring, and then the green centering ring here. Okay, so we need to measure from one end 3 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch, and just make a little mark there. Okay, 3 is going to be right about there. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is mount the engine block there. Okay, so we're just going to put a little bit of glue in this. We don't want it to be really heavy or sloppy because we don't want to get glue down inside the motor mount. And then this is just going to pop in here. There we go, and just make that flush. And then the green centering ring is going to go over this. It's really kind of tough there. Alright, so something you can do if you got really tight centering rings is take your nose cone here and use it kind of like a mandrel to just expand that out a little bit. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to put a bead of glue inside of our mark there. Smear that around. Okay, and then we're going to put that centering ring on right to the mark. Okay, and we're going to let that dry for a little bit. Alright, we're going to skip this part for now while the motor mount is still drying. We'll come back to that. So we're going to come back down to the next step, which is assembling the engine mount for the sustainer or upper stage. Now, superficially this looks the same, but there is a difference here. Okay, on the booster stage motor mount, the thrust ring is on the same end as this centering ring. On the sustainer, the thrust ring goes in one end and the centering ring goes on the other. So I'm going to mark on here that this is the booster. Alright, and it can continue drying. And then this is the sustainer. Okay, now this is going to go together in the same way, again with opposite rings. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my 3 millimeters here. Alright, and this is going to be the aft end. Now before we put these together, I'm going to dry mount this, and I got away and kind of got lucky on the first one, but you should dry mount these first. This is really tight, so just like I did with the centering rings, I'm going to use my nose cone here just to expand that end a little bit, and then we can put that in. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and put the glue on. Alright, that's about as much glue as we need for the whole thing. Okay, and now we'll put that in. Alright, and that's going to be flush, so we'll just press that down like that. Okay, now if I do the same thing back here, alright, that centering ring went on a whole lot easier. Okay, so now we'll put a bead of glue between the mark and the centering ring. And then we're just going to push that up till we get to our 3 millimeter mark there. And the excess glue, you can just kind of fill it into place there. Alright, so that one has to dry. Now while we're waiting for the motor mounts to dry here, we can go ahead and assemble the nose cone. For this you'll need some tube type plastic cement. Okay, and here we're going to put in an even bead of glue, but you don't want too much there or you may melt the plastic and your nose cone can warp. That's never a good thing. Okay, we're just going to put the base in there, give it a twist back and forth to seat itself in the glue, and that can dry. While we're in hurry up and wait mode with all of the glue drying, we can go ahead and assemble a parachute. And most of this is already pre-assembled. But if you've seen any of my videos, you know I like to put a snap swivel on my parachutes here. So I'm going to do that with this one as well. So first I'm going to open this up, lay it out flat, and get all of the shroud lines untangled. Okay, so you should have one shroud line that goes between opposite corners, and then 2 shroud lines that are attached at adjacent corners. Alright, and we're going to take all of those shroud lines and loop them around one finger. And then I'm going to grab the parachute in the middle, and I'm just going to gently put some tension on these. And all of those corners should be roughly aligned with each other. Alright, if they aren't, you can kind of shift these back and forth a little bit until it does. If you got that the way you want it, now still maintaining a grip on this, go ahead and gather those up. Okay, and I'm going to kind of squish this down. Now if you're just going to attach it directly to the nose cone, like this, alright, then you put those loops through. Okay, find all your loops again. And still keeping tension on this, you're going to pass the nose cone through, and then you're going to put some tension on here. Now I'm not going to pull this tight because I don't want to do it this way. Alright, but if you pull this tight, it'll cinch down all the shroud lines onto the base of the nose cone there, and then you can just add a little dab of white glue to keep them from coming loose. Now I don't want to tie mine directly on there, so I'm going to form everything back up here again. Okay, make sure my corners are even. Grip my shroud lines once more. And now I'm going to take a snap swivel, and you can get these at fishing supplies, hobby stores, sporting goods stores, even some department stores. And we're going to take the loops here, just like we did with the nose cone, but instead of putting them through the nose cone eyelet, we're going to put it through the swivel side here of the snap swivel. So the circular part here, not the snap part. All right, you're just going to pass those through. Bring that out. Okay, now this is the same thing we did with the nose cone, except we're doing it with the snap swivel. So now we're going to pass the snap swivel through the loops. Pull those loops back, and I'm still holding on back here. And now I'm just going to pull everything taut. Okay, check again. If things slipped out of place, you can just untie this and try again. If you've got it where you want it though, then just put a little dab of white glue on the knot. Kind of work it in there. Okay, and now I can just clip this on to my nose cone when I'm ready. Okay, and it's ready to go. And this way I can change this out if I don't want to store the parachute in the rocket, or maybe you get a windy day and you want to replace this with a smaller chute or with a streamer. These just pop on and off like that. The main thing you need to look at with the snap swivel is that on the snap end, there has to be enough room for this to freely move about the eyelet, and it does. If it grabs, what will happen is it'll try to stick out to the side, and that could prevent the ejection system from working properly. So I'm just going to take that back off. All right, and we'll set this aside for now and clip it on later. The glue on my motor mount has dried enough that we can work with it. So now we're going to mount the booster engine mount into the booster fin can here. Now remember, this one has the engine block in the aft end and the centering ring in the aft end. And this is going to fit up through here. Alright, and we're going to put some glue in there, and then that's going to mount pretty close to being flush there. Okay, so we're going to pop that back out. And using our tube type plastic cement again, we're going to run a bead of glue in here. And you get a kind of a moderate one. You want it even, but not so heavy that it starts melting the fin can. Alright, and then once again, this up in here. Alright, slide that into place, and we're just going to press that down. Okay, so that should be flush there. Alright, now we're going to take another green ring here, and this is going to fit over the top. Alright, and that one's kind of tight as well. So once again, we can use our nose cone here to press that outward just a bit. There we go. And keeping this on our surface, I'm going to press this down just a bit. And now we're going to apply a bead of glue here. Okay, now we don't want this really heavy or it'll squish out onto the booster. Alright, so just put an even coating there, and then again go ahead and just squish that down. Okay, and then we're going to remove anything that got out of there. So we'll just wipe that around like that. Okay, now we've got the booster body tube to put in place, and this is going to slide over the whole thing. Alright, now this again is kind of tight. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just flare that a little bit. Okay, and then what we're going to do is apply a bead of white glue, or wood glue here. I have white wood glue. Okay, and then we're going to spread that evenly there. And then this is going to go down over the motor mount tube like that, over that centering ring. You want to do this quickly so it doesn't grab, and just press down. So now you're looking at something like that. Okay, and then finally we have this yellow reinforcing ring, and this is going to go like that. Okay, so here once again, we'll put some glue in there. In there, not on there. Okay, and here you want to make sure that you're not getting anything down into the motor mount tube, as that has to have a clear passage upward into the sustainer. Okay, so now we're just going to put that on there, and we're going to put that flush, and we'll set this aside to let the whole booster assembly dry. Now we're going to do the same thing for the sustainer motor mount. Alright, now remember, this one here has the thrust ring in front, centering ring in the back. And just like we did with this, I'm going to go ahead and dry fit this first. This is going to go together pretty much the same way that the booster did. Now in this case, this is just a little bit too thick there. So I'm going to take some 150 grit sandpaper and mostly just sand down that edge. It looks like it's flared out a little bit. Okay, looks like we need some more. Okay, still a little bit tight. And actually it looks like it got a little off center in there when they made this piece. So what I'm going to do is take a little file here, and we'll just kind of file down this thicker area right here. Okay, so just taking a little file here, I'm just going to file down that thick edge. There we go. Alright, so just like we did with the booster then, we're going to add a ring of glue inside of this. Alright, then we're going to reinsert this, get it past that edge there, okay, and we're going to press that down flush, just like that. And then to hold this one in place, we're going to use this big green ring. Alright, so the long ring here, and this is going to fit over the top just like we saw on the other one. And that's still kind of tight there. Alright, now with a ring this long, using the nose cone trick here may not work. Try it. There we go. Okay, and just as before, we're going to run a bead of glue here. Okay, and now again in one motion we're just going to put that all the way down. And then wipe off the excess. And we're going to let that completely dry as well. While we're waiting for all of those fin assemblies to dry, we'll go ahead and mark this for the launch lug. And so I'm going to mark one end of my tube here as aft. I'm just going to put this right inside. This is just so I don't get confused later on as to which end of the rocket I'm working on. Okay, so what we need to do is make a line along the body tube, 8 inches long or so. And you want to do this really lightly if you can. So they show using a door frame. This is a tube marking guide that Estes makes. And so here, I don't want to run the line any more than I have to. Okay, so if it has to be 8 inches, get this up where you can see it. All right, I'm going to measure 8 inches from the aft end. So that puts it there. Alright, this doesn't have to be exact. And then I'm just going to make a little bit of a line here for the launch lug. Okay, you really don't need to make it all the way down. It will give you a better line to sight along to make sure it's straight, but it's really hard to get it back off, so I don't want to ruin the finish here if I don't have to. Okay, and then we can go ahead and take the launch lug. All right, they're doing this after the fin assemblies are attached, but we can do it now. Okay, so that launch lug is going to go right there. And I'm going to take my sandpaper here and just very carefully scratch the surface where the launch lug is going to be. It doesn't take much. All right, apply a little bit of glue there. And we're just going to stick that right on. Okay, so now I'm going to look at it straight down to see if it's parallel. It appears to be. Okay, and then looking down the tube, it's actually not quite straight there. You can also take a launch rod, stick it in there, and use it to align it as well, if you've got a spare one handy. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to set it aside to dry, along with everything else. So at this point we're pretty much waiting on glue to dry. So I'm going to give everything about half an hour here and then come back and we'll put everything together. There's one more thing that we can do while the glue is drying, and that's to attach the shock cord. So here's our elastic shock cord. Alright, the shock cord mount is printed here on the first page, so I'm going to make sure there's nothing there. Nope, that's the fin attachment part, and I know what to do there. So I will go ahead and cut this out. If you don't want to cut up your instructions, you can just make a photocopy of this and cut it out. Okay. Now here I'm going to try a little trick that one of my viewers had suggested, and that is to take a small portion at one end of the shock cord there and split it like this. And the idea here is to help reduce the lump that forms when we fold the shock cord over itself there. Make that a little bit longer. Okay, so now I'm going to take some more wood glue or white glue. And we're going to pretty much coat most of that with it. Okay, and I'm going to take my forked end here, put it in the glue, and now I'm going to fold the one over onto the two, alright, keeping that fork apart, and then the two over and onto the three. Okay, and we want to squish all the air out of there so that we've just got glue and paper and rubber. And now I'm going to give this a bit of a curvature. And apply some more glue to it. Okay, and we want this even as well, so all over there. Okay, and now we need the forward end of our body tube. And this is why I marked one end aft. And I'm going to slide this in. And this needs to be at least 1.5 inches down. Farther if you can do it. So if you got long spindly fingers, this is a good job for you. Alright, and now I'm going to press that against the inside wall. I'm going to turn that around here so that now I can press this against my hand. Alright, so my finger's inside and it's pressing the anchor onto the body tube, and the body tube is resting on my hand here so I can keep some pretty good pressure. Alright, and just flatten that as much as you can against the inside. Now if we can get, can't quite get that into focus there, but that is down about 2 inches or so. And the reason that you need that depth is so that the shoulder of the nose cone does not get hung up on that shock cord. Now, the glue on my launch lug has dried enough that I can handle it, and we do want to put some fillets on this. Now, if you've been using a yellow wood glue for construction, here I recommend using a white glue so that it dries clear and doesn't detract from the finish. We also want to do this kind of minimally. So that we don't have a lot of excess to spread out. So clean up any excess glue as quickly as you can there. Yeah, I still use too much. There we go. Okay, and that can be drying. Okay, now what we're going to do is insert the fin assembly into the sustainer body tube here. I'm going to do a dry fit first, and so this will just go into the aft end, and that's going to slide forward. Now that's really tight, and we don't want this to lock up on us as we're going in. So I'm going to go ahead and see if we can flare that open a bit. Okay, it's still a bit tight, but I think I can do it. If it's too tight for your comfort, then go ahead and just take some fine sandpaper and just sand around that a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to put a bead of glue in here, but not right up to the edge. I want to give myself a little bit of working room so that I can adjust it. It's a little bit close for me yet. Okay, but what I'm trying to do here is get the launch lug centered in between two of the fins. So I'm just going to just barely put that in, not touching the glue yet. Check my alignment. Alright, now I'm going to stand this up, and you won't be able to see it too well, but I'm just going to press down in one motion. A little bit more. Okay, yeah, I was afraid what would happen. Okay, so probably should have sanded that a little bit. It's not too noticeable here, but the glue grabbed onto that centering ring before I could finish moving this all the way down here. Yeah, and that's stuck in place. So that's fine. From a distance, you won't even know it's there. Okay, back here on the other end, we'll go ahead and attach the nose cone. Okay, just tie a double knot in there, 2 half hitches. Alright, cinch that down really well. And then if you have excess here, cut that back to about 5 or 6 millimeters, or about 1/4 of an inch. We don't want it to be able to get caught between the shoulder here and the body tube. Once you have that where you want it, go ahead and put just a little dab of glue on it to keep it from unraveling. Okay, it doesn't take much, just enough to keep the knot from slipping. Alright, and then we would attach the parachute here. I'm not going to do it quite yet. I'm just going to tuck this stuff away. But mainly because there may be still some soft glue on the shock cord mount there, and I don't want to glue it to the parachute. Our last thing to do then is to apply the decals, and this is probably the worst part of this particular kit. And the reason I say that is because once you've got these decals down, you can't move them because the finish on this is really thin and it'll peel it up. And so you want to make sure that you've got it as close to where you want it as you can. It's also a good idea to wash your hands thoroughly, so that you minimize fingerprints. My decal just tore there, but I think I can hide it. Okay, so this is meant to go along the length of my rocket here, and I'm going to put it opposite my launch lug, and approximately in the middle. Okay, so just put it down lightly and make sure that's where you want it. You may still be able to peel it up at this point. Once you do have this where you want it, start in the center and just move a finger down to apply that. Just down the middle there, and then work your way toward the edges from the middle. Just like that. Okay, and now I'll put on the rest of these. You can put these anywhere you want to. I'm going to go with something close to the suggested layout here. Here I have the decals on both the sustainer and the booster. And so, one last thing here. You can't just mount this together and display it, unfortunately, because it uses the motors to hold itself together. So these are dummy motors here. But what you do is take the booster motor, anyone that has a 0 on its last number there, and the forward end of that goes onto the nozzle or aft end of the sustainer motor, and then those are held in place with a small piece of Scotch tape. Okay, and so what we'll do here is tape the two motors together, and you want just a single circumference of this. You don't want this to get really thick. Alright, it's going to go like that. And then if needed, you'll also put some masking tape just above that and just below it on these to hold them in place so the motors don't come detached from the motor mount tubes. I'm not going to put that on yet. Alright, and then this is just going to slip up inside there. And then the aft, or the booster stage here, slips on the bottom. Okay, now if you need to, you can take a fingernail and kind of chamfer that edge around in there so it's just a little bit more flared. If you need to, you may have to do it on the motor as well, and you do the opposite, so you just run a fingernail around that to press it inward. Alright, and then that fits on there just like that. Okay, so here, this is pretty much ready to fly. The only thing we would need to do is put some wadding down inside there, attach our parachute here, and then it's ready to go. So I hope you had fun building this. As I said, this took me a little bit more than an hour. You will have to wait longer than that to actually fly it, as you want all of this glue to dry. But you can basically go from package to flight in about 4 hours. So have a great flight and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my videos.